Hey everybody, welcome to ISO English and this A2 English listening practice video. Why is this A2? Well, it's A2 because I am going to talk slowly and use simpler language than you would normally hear in other videos. But just know that some words and phrases that I use will be new for you or hard to understand for you. In my opinion, the goal of an A2 listening practice video is to help you get to an B1 level. It's not meant to keep you at A2. So in this A2 listening practice video, I'll probably use words and phrases that are a little bit of a higher level because this is going to help you get accustomed to more difficult English. Because remember, the goal with a practice video for A2 English learners is to help them reach the next level, B1. So yes, I'm going to use language and phrases that aren't technically A2, but that doesn't matter. This is good exposure for you to become exposed to harder language so you can reach the next level in your listening comprehension. And of course, I can also talk about more interesting things if I can use language that's a little bit challenging for an A2 learner. So it keeps the videos interesting as well. So today's topic is a little bit different from normal. Recently, I've done a lot of videos about language learning. Today's video is still somewhat related to language learning, but not quite, not exactly. I'm going to talk about my international family. This is an interesting topic for me, and I'm sure many of you will want to know a little bit about my family and the international aspect of my family. So that's what I'm going to talk about today in a slow and clear way so you can practice your listening. Before we continue, I want to mention that if you want my listening training to help you understand native speakers better when they speak fast, and if you want my pronunciation training so you can speak and pronounce things more like a native speaker, then make sure to check out my membership because I offer a lot of training and I help you become more comfortable with understanding and pronouncing the sounds of English. So that link is down below in the description. So let me talk about my international family. Now, my wife is from Mexico, from Guadalajara, Mexico. And I met her many years ago when I traveled to Mexico to study Spanish. I went to a language school to study Spanish, but I also took that trip to have fun and to explore another country. So I stayed there for 5 weeks and I met my wife at the language school where I was studying. She was studying English because, if I remember correctly, she was going to take her TOEFL test, I think. And I was studying Spanish. And at that school, they had this conversation class where the locals who were learning English could talk to the foreigners who were learning Spanish. So I was able to meet my wife at this school. And 3 years later, we got married. So before we got married, we lived in different countries. I lived in the US and she lived in Mexico for 3 years. We were in a long distance relationship, as we call it. So that wasn't easy, but we did it. And I visited her many times in Mexico while we were dating, meaning while we were in a relationship before we were married. And she visited me in the US as well. And when we got married, we had 2 weddings, not 2 marriages. I can only get married once, but we had 2 wedding celebrations, one in Mexico and one in the US. And then after we got married, I moved to Mexico and I had to adapt to a completely different culture and lifestyle. I had to adapt to the customs in Mexico and the culture, the differences in the culture there. It wasn't simple. It was a little complicated, But the 3 years prior to that, meaning before that, I became more accustomed to Mexican culture because I talked to my wife every day on the phone and learned more about the country. So I was able to adapt. But it was a little hard, of course. And my wife and I both had to go through immigration processes. I became a resident in Mexico, and my wife became a resident here in the US. And it's not fun to deal with immigration processes. It's not easy to go through those processes. But my wife did that. For me, it was easier in Mexico. And then we moved to the US. Now we live in the US, and my wife has adapted to the customs here and the culture here. So now it's her turn to live in a foreign country and adapt to the different culture. So before we moved here, my son was born in Mexico. So he was born in Guadalajara, and my daughter was actually born here. So my son was born in Mexico, but my daughter was born here in California. But now they both have dual citizenship. This means that they are citizens of Mexico and citizens of the United States. So both of them have dual citizenship, as we say. My children will both be bilingual. My son is already bilingual. He speaks English and Spanish, but he's very young, so he still needs to learn a lot. He doesn't speak like an adult yet. He's still learning how to speak. So it's really fun to watch him learn both languages. He is developing his skills in English and in Spanish. It's really interesting to watch this happen. My daughter is still too young to talk, so she doesn't speak English or Spanish, but she will, because my wife speaks to her in Spanish and I speak to her in English. So she will also be bilingual. My family, we visit Mexico regularly. We visit Mexico every year or maybe twice a year. So Mexico is still very important to my family. My wife's parents lived there, and I lived there for years, 6 years, I think. So it's a part of me. What I'm trying to say is I have spent a lot of time in Mexico, so it's like my second home, right? So we visit Mexico regularly, but of course we live in the US, and because we live here, we have more American customs, but also some Mexican customs. For example, we eat lunch more like at the same time that people in Mexico eat lunch, or sometimes even later. But that's just one example. There are other Mexican customs that we also have, but we live in the US now, so most of our customs, our habits, are more habits and customs from here. So there are many good things about having an international family, but there are also challenges, of course. It's not the easiest thing, okay? However, I am very thankful that I have my international family. It's perfect for me, and I am very thankful for my situation, my wife, my children, my experiences with them, and living in Mexico. So for me, it is really interesting and fun and cool to have this international family, but it's not for everyone. For many people, it would be challenging to have this type of family. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. Remember that if you need my training to help you understand English better and pronounce words and phrases better, more like a native speaker, then make sure to sign up for my membership so you can get my specialized training. Okay, that link is down below. All right, I hope you enjoyed this A2 listening practice video. Maybe it was a little challenging for you, but that's good. Watch it again and again and again until you can understand everything. All right, I'll talk to you in the next one.